Welcome to the Glass Lab podcast, where we talk all things product development. It's our goal every month to introduce you to the people, ideas, and development tools that are shaping the hardware products we all use every day. Well, welcome back to the Glass Lab podcast, and this week we have SEP, Software Engineering Professionals, with us, and thanks for joining us today, guys. We have Raman Ori, right? Get that right?
You got it.
Cool. And you're the president and CEO, and we got Zach Darnell, who is host of Behind the Product podcast for SEP. So if you want another awesome podcast, you should go check that out as well.
I agree.
It's the reason we brought them on. I was watching it, and I was like, they need to come on our podcast. So you're the reason
maybe
we're
we'll
all here
today.
today.
One day.
Yep.
We'll find another thing to talk about.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, guys. I guess just off the front end, we kind of do this with most our guests. I mean, maybe just kind of give us a little introduction to yourselves. Maybe how long you've been at SEP, and just we'd like to get just a little bit of background, as do I think most of our listeners.
Okay, so SEP is a software product design development company. As Grant likes to say, we're like Glassboard, but for bits.
Yeah,
Did I get it right?
Yep.
Instead of atoms. I have been with SEP since 1993. So I'm not a founder. I was employee 18, joined the company as a software engineer, fresh out of school. And now I've run out of jobs. So hopefully I reincarnate as an engineer again at some point.
I mean, there's always director of the board or, president emeritus or something, right?
I am the chair of the board.
All three
I
titles.
missed that title off the front end. We could have gone with 3.
We keep trying to put him on a project, but nobody wants that risk because it's been a few years. I think he'd still do pretty well.
My data game is strong.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. I've been at SEP for a little over 5 years. I've been in kind of the indie tech community for almost 18, maybe. This is company number 8 for me in my career, the longest I've ever been at a job. So it's been a lot of fun.
Nice.
Get to wear a lot of hats, and that's the thing that I think keeps it fun and interesting. The variety helps my personality.
Yeah, keeping it fresh is really important. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts about what both of our companies do is every day is a different day because you can have multiple projects at different phases, different stages, and there's, as we like to say, different fires to put out every day. So it's not always a production fire, manufacturing fire. Sometimes it's, I don't know why the users don't like this prototype, and they're very different. It's refreshing to fight each one individually.
I warn new hires because a lot of them will come in saying, I'm looking for more variety. My current job is very stale, same thing and over and again. I go, I promise you, if there are problems, that will not be one of them. And actually, you're probably going to come to me in 18 months and tell me to turn down the chaos a little bit.
Yes.
Honestly, that's the one thing that we try to better manage, and I'm hoping to better manage in the future as the team continues to grow, is just less context switch because again, in a smaller company, it's just I have no idea what's going to walk through the door, and you've only got so many people with so many roles that sometimes you got to move the chess pieces around constantly to kind of meet the need.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Actually, I remember, I think about 6 months after I started, because they sat me right next to him when I started, which I don't know is a good or a bad thing. And there was a day where I think we were talking about the first project that I was going to take on and oversee. And you were like, look, there will be a day where you look back on this time as a fond memory of not being so much in the thick of it. And you were right. You were not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Managing that is hard to do, especially for employees.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely try to keep them in one project for at least a little
Yes.
bit of time to get there. Yeah, that is one thing that I learned is don't go directly into the deep end when it comes to multiple projects.
Yeah.
Let them have some early wins and then show them what life's really like.
Very much so. It can help.
Boiling
But the
frog
beautiful
helps.
side,
Yeah.
right? You think about you're a graduating senior in engineering, computer science, whatever. You could go work at a product company, and there will be some amazing things there, right? You will go deep. You'll build this great network. You'll have this this high rep company on your resume. Those are good things, and probably a great big paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can go live the professional services life, and you're going to learn. You're a big company. We would say you're going to get awesomer faster,
Yeah.
right? Because of
Yes.
all that variety, all that challenge.
Can I take that phrase, get awesomer faster? Is that trademarked yet, or can I borrow it?
You have an unlimited royalty-free license.
Excellent.
For, Central Indiana.
Yeah, were you guys at Purdue's career fair last week?
I am sure we
Probably.
had somebody.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
good. I sent a lot of people your way. I'm like, I don't know if they're here, but go look them up because where we overlap in the software stack, I get people that are much too high for us to have a full-time role for, but I'm like, if you thought we were cool, let me tell you where you need to live.
That's red computer science. Computer engineers we keep, computer science we send your way.
Exactly. But it's so funny because they're literally like, but I want to work at a company where I get to work on different things every day and all throughout the stack for them, which is all throughout the upper half of the stack. I'm like, promise me, I know you don't want to work here. You want to work there because you're not going to understand anything we do.
That is cool that you guys talk about that promise as well, because that's one pitch that I did give to a lot of people who are coming up to talk to us at the expo was, Glassboard is a place where, again, like you really are going to learn quickly. A lot of questions that I get is, what will my internship be like? Because again, I think a lot of kids are used to being in a like kind of just a pre-done program, right? And I'm like, no, like you're going to sit in the same offices as the rest of the engineers and work on, product development products, right? Like, I mean, you're going to be in the thick of it, more or less, right? Obviously, based on your skills and stuff, may not be able to work on everything, right? But I definitely think that is a promise that we mostly, I think, I've looked at every person both that's continued on from Glassboard. I think if there's one promise that I kept, it was you're going to work on a lot of stuff and you're going to learn incredibly quickly. And I think even if you were to talk to most ex-employees, like that would be the sentiment, is that like in the 2, 3, 4, however many years they were there, is like I learned more in that period of time than I probably would have anywhere else. So I definitely think that's a cool thing in the consultancy space, that you're going to see so much variety and get to touch so many different things.
Yeah, and I've worked for 2 prior consulting firms, one that I remember very fondly and one I don't. And the thing that I think is really cool about SEP, to all of your points about product companies, that's where I started my career and spent many years deeply in a product environment. And you get to go deep, and it can be a lot of fun, but it lacks some of that variety. I think when our folks start right out of school, they know how to write software, to a certain degree, but then it's how do we teach them how to do it at SEP? How do they become part of our culture? How do they live that out day in and day out with their teams? And to your point about internships, when interns come and hang out with us for the summer, you're on a project team. You're building real stuff alongside people that are building real things that real people are going to use. And I think it's been some of the best experiences for some of those folks.
And those are some of our best hires. The repeat internships that then turn into a full-time. You're like, yep, you went to us over summer and then went back to school knowing what parts to pay attention to and what parts to don't worry about.
Yeah, we're realizing, I think, as time goes on, and I'm sure you guys have figured this out a lot earlier than we did, is we're finding this sometimes it's actually easier to create great product development engineers than it is to take somebody that actually is more senior with really good skills, but either bad habits, or even if they're not bad habits, just used to being in an environment where they're like fed a set of engineering requirements and then only responsible for the outputs there, right? Whereas you put them in a little bit more of a creative environment or a blue ocean, right? And they just are, it's hard to adapt sometimes when you haven't been brought up in that ecosystem with the expectation that, hey, you're going to make some higher level decisions here, and you're not going to just stay really really narrow. You're really going to broaden out what you need to do on a day in, day out basis. You may get really high level requirements and have to then translate those into technical requirements before you move on, right? So
it's just turned into a hiring conversation.
Right.
I will take aptitude and enthusiasm over experiences any day. Now, there are certain things I don't want to be somebody's first heart surgery, right? Like, but for what we do, when you compare a real craftsman with that I'm not going to say young, I don't want to get in trouble with HR, right? But early career, enthusiastic, a lot of aptitude, you can make some magic happen.
No, I think we're seeing the same thing. Again, I a lot of times will look for specific skills and highly like add bonus points to them when I say like, oh, you've got Altium designer experience. Okay, like +5 points in my book. And I think I have realized over time that like that's good to have. But again, similar to what you're saying, I would take enthusiasm, passion, and less experience, right? Maybe still a good background with skills and other things, but if they don't have the specific tools that I'm looking for, it's like, it's okay, we'll teach them that. And the passion will mean that initially they may not be as good as somebody else that does have that experience. But within 6 or 9 months, they're gonna hit that crossroad where then compared to the other guy, they're gonna be way ahead. So it's neat.
No, and it's so hard from a like operations perspective to make that call. to choose the person with the right personality over the person that can make your ouch go away right now. I am oversubscribed. We need this talent. We have to solve these problems right now. But it's almost always the better choice to slow down, get the right people on the bus than just the right skills on the bus, because skills can be built, and attitude, I haven't figured out a way to build that one from scratch yet.
We tend to think I tend to think, others I'm sure have a name for this, but there are jobs that I need a seasoned professional. Our director of HR joined us right before COVID, right? Like, this is not a place to cut your teeth in a 100 plus person company. But in the main line of business that is going to be the service we are delivering over the long haul, we want to have a plan to bring in early career talent, train them up our way, and watch them grow, and then eventually them be that craftsman that's teaching somebody new, and have that pipeline. Mm-hmm. It is essential, I think, to frankly the economics, but also culturally. Like, people love to share and teach. The early career folks, they want someone to invest in them. Everybody's winning. My
favorite part of the tour that you gave when I was there, 2 or 3 weeks ago, was the Charlie Brown photo where you'd slot the photos of people in and out for office hours of the little KISS booth, but it was, code review or help booth. And I thought it was so cool that you guys have a dedicated space and place for this to happen. It's not just in the culture, hey guys, you need to be mentoring the new team members. It is, here's your time to go be available. So even if someone's introverted and doesn't know how to ask for help, there's a place that it just goes and happens, and it's expected that you all visit that place.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, that is maybe an explicit place that happens. There are other implicit ways that shows up on every team, and they all kind of do it a little bit differently.
And that's my assumption, that because you guys have an explicit place, your implicit solutions must be amazing. Yeah. Otherwise, the explicit would have never materialized. Yeah. It wouldn't have been important enough. Yeah.
Do you guys have like a technical, confessional where people with tech debt, kind of go in with like a senior person who's like, how do I get rid of this? It could be maybe an idea you could play with, right?
There you go.
Maybe one of the quiet rooms that we've got on.
Yeah.
It'd be something about regretful decisions, right? Like, nobody writes code, and doesn't see it sometimes minutes later, but typically, let's say months or years later, and think like, why did I do that?
I was actually talking about that with my barber today, because she was commenting on how she looks at like early pictures of her, the hair that she was doing, and she was like, yeah, I mean, I can't believe what I used to do back then, right? And clearly I was proud of it because I was taking pictures, right? And just, I think that exists in every career, right? But I like to see the corollary. Specifically, that was the thing that I thought about with software developers, because you put 5 years in between you and your last code, and it doesn't matter if you were 25 when you wrote it or probably 45 when you wrote it. If enough time passes, you look back and you kind of cringe, and you're like, oh man, that's how I was doing it back then. So.
I mean, it's a little bit of future proof that you've matured as a maker.
Yeah,
100%.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe you guys can tell us a little bit about just kind of the again, a little bit more of like the milestones and kind of the history. I mean, what do you guys see as maybe some of the more like pivotal points in the journey for you guys as a business? Like, was there points of inflection or major road bumps you felt like you had to get over, or was it pretty kind of linear all the way up? More or less.
Yeah,
real easy,
yeah,
right?
Everybody,
up and to the right constantly.
I'm softball pitching here, guys, right?
No, I appreciate that. Many. So, we've always been process focused. I would say process nerds. Always quality focused. In a sense, like, that's a fluffy word. We want to make good stuff, and makers know when they're making good stuff. We know, right?
We don't want your own dog food, right?
Yeah, we don't want to just cash a check. I want to make stuff I'm proud of, and so we've always been that way. That we're coming up on 36 years. That doesn't just automatically translate those. Like, there are kind of key moments. So I think really through dumb luck, we were very early adopters of lean and natural process, for example, and that literally was this team over here heard a talk or read a book and decided to try something. This other team also did it. I think one was XP and one was, I'm going to space it, not Crystal, another very early method. And teams have a lot of freedom to try stuff. They're responsible. Like, you still have to deliver. But from a process perspective, if you think that could work, what do you need? And go run with it. And so that was 2006.
Well, that was a little earlier. I feel like
Yeah,
closer to 2001. I
It
thought
was early, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
most major corps, right now are
Right.
attempting to adopt these techniques, right?
Right.
So that really was a major inflection point for us. And it the nice narrative up and to the right history, we were, well, these teams started it. It was grassroots, and then they showed it to other teams, and then we adopted it, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
No. There was arguments like which method is right. There were folks doing things in a more traditional waterfall-y way, and they were having success. So why would I adopt this other thing?
And that was both internal and external.
Oh, yes,
Yeah?
and,
Yeah,
and
okay.
and by all means, you quickly learn, don't say the A word in front of customers. Please don't say agile. You could talk about the method you're using, but if you say that word, they think you mean you're not testing, you're not trying. You're just haphazardly throwing their product together,
Yeah.
which is not what was happening. But yeah, so it was bumpy as hell, and there were many twists and turns. And should we be top down? Should we mandate or not? And which it was all
Yeah.
over the place. But slowly and steadily, that became a thing. And really, I say it's pivotal in the sense of like that I think accelerated our experimentation with process and techniques. It forced us to keep going. And the fact that there were so many all at once, everybody settled on Scrum as if it was the one and true answer forever. But it sort of opened up everybody's mind. There is not a great way yet to build software. Let's keep getting better at this. Oh, you got something new to try. Great. Let
Yeah.
me try it.
That's one thing that I think I see, particularly with the more technical consultancies, is being near the pointy end of the spear on just what you're doing as a function for people also leads you to be able to be kind of at the pointy end of the spear when it comes to, I think, kind of the latest processes and stuff. Because again, I think we see very similar things at Glassboard, and it's not even, I think, that we like consciously set out to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna try to be at the forefront of this process or that process. It's similar to what you said. It's just kind of an organic thing where, like, as a company full of engineers, we like to tinker with new stuff. And then, when we find something that works for like an internal process or a new protocol, it's like, oh yeah, like we'll try to adopt that. I think there's a certain openness to adopting new things that maybe, like you said, doesn't exist in much larger organizations, either because it can't or because it just doesn't have that same mentality of newness and creativity and working on some of those things. Because yeah, I mean, we for sure. I mean, I similar to you guys, we walked into big customers and clients. I mean, even this was early at Glassboard, but I remember GitHub repos and repos and this was both software and hardware, right?
Mhm.
I mean, when we came in and inherited a bunch of zip files, right, and like we just automatically, because it's part of our process, like set it up as a repo, and we're doing that. Like I had the engineering manager set me aside one time I was on site, and he's like, "Hey, before you fly out today, like, can you give like a 2-hour meeting with like the engineering staff on like this?" I'm like, I have nothing prepared. He's like, I just want you to talk about the benefits of like Git repos, because I think we should be doing this internally and pitch it. And so we did, and like ironically enough, I was like the admin, I think, of their, like, finally we had finished up some work for a while, and I like emailed him. I was like, you probably need to take me out of like your management system on this, guys. We're no longer active engaging. Like, this is a security risk. But
and it's just as bad in the mechanical side. Like, we still run the PDM, like the vault for all the like CAD files for some of our clients, like on our servers sometimes, and sometimes on Amazon servers we manage for them. And it's crazy how, as a consultancy, you see the need for data integrity and traceability and who did what when and revision control when someone in the middle of developing their own product is blindsided. Like, no, we don't have time to implement that. We just want to go fast and get it out to market, not knowing they're just burying, instead of seeds in the ground to grow into plants, little grenades and landmines are going to walk back over later.
But it is cool that you get to like evangelize in a different way, right? Like, you're actually adding value potentially both to the thing that you're working on, but actually adding value in terms of exposing them to maybe better processes. And once they see it and see how well it works, they're like, oh wow, like, yeah, maybe we should. Because I'm kind of curious, did you find that, like, early on when you were starting to do this, did you find that the customers that you were working with, like, after a while were like asking about the methodology or like how to replicate that? Like, did you find existing customers were leaning in like way more than the industry average kind of thing? It's what I would think would happen, but
They do, and the pattern repeats over time, right? I love how you said, like, oh, we're open to new ideas and we try new stuff. Like, let's be real, engineers, we hate everything. We find the flaw and we complain. So we try these new techniques because I'm not satisfied,
right.
and we're never right. So least worst. What is the least worst thing I
We're
could
in
use?
process to rule them all, and now we have a 15th process.
Okay, but So, okay, first spicy take from me. If you're a small business and you, especially a professional service, you better be better at the thing than even the biggest companies in the world. So you guys building physical products, prototype through, like, you better be better at it than they are. We better be better at building the software. So, so we should always be a couple steps ahead. And inevitably, yeah, for us, every company's a tech company now. Every company has software in their building, and it's not their first priority. It's not native. A lot of these companies aren't digital native, and so it's hard. It's not that anybody's not trying or is incompetent. It's just hard to make a new thing in these giant corps. And so yeah, they're always looking. What I find interesting is quite often it's not about how we're building the software. It is everything else. It's wow, your team's really good. Like, how did you hire these? How did you know? Where do you recruit? What do you, and for companies like ours, like, yeah, we're dead if we get this wrong. I cannot afford to make a bunch of hiring mistakes. So
yeah,
we invest in.
We
ways
would
they
either
don't.
exist in our current form or we wouldn't. There is no middle ground where like we'd be kind of middle of the pack, mediocre at this.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, that is the product we sell. For example, Sunbeam Toasters has to make the best toasters in the world. They wouldn't be Sunbeam Toasters. We don't sell toasters or bike parts or computers or anything else. We sell people. We sell access to really talented people in a really nice, well-polished process. We all joke, perfect, but always under construction.
Yeah.
But those are the things that both of our companies sell as a service, right?
Yeah.
And I think that you're completely right that we have to be those experts, even if we're not the expert in whatever our clients are trying to do at the time, right? Whether it's a new kind of software that you guys might not be experts in, or for us, a different application of hardware in an industry we might not be familiar with. I remember our first medical device was a lot of learning, but our client was in that space, right? So they taught us process and we taught them hardware. And that was a ton of back and forth. It was super fun.
Did you, I'm curious, we often see this. So do you ever find that you have built some rapport with a customer working on things you knew how to do well, and then they had an adjacent thing that it fit your business, but it wasn't a thing you were good at yet. And they had built the rapport and said, it's okay, I want you to do it.
You're describing exactly how we got here and how we're going to go wherever we go. And when we started, we weren't a product company. Glassboard was an engineering service company. We only would do engineering services. So people would give us, engineering specs. We'd crank out circuit boards or CAD models or FEA reports. And that grew into, hey, can you guys do design? This is my end goal. Can you feed your own reports and make your own goals? And that snowballed into, hey, can you design my packaging? How about my instructions for use? What about my brand? What about our colors and brand guidelines? And it's this, always opening up the, started narrow and started just getting wider and wider. And when you have a team that's always had to do that one more thing, they get really okay at adding one more thing every time they do a project. Hey, I know you're an industrial designer and maybe not an advertising or branding person, but can you make them a brand guideline? And that snowballed into, that's just part of our culture to always look for the one thing we can do that they didn't even ask us to throw that in, because we know they're missing it, right? About a third of our business is startup. So a third of our business has a zero of anything on the table except for the one thing the founder or the three things the three founders are good at. Everything else for them is new. I have had to build cash flow models and pitch decks for clients because getting them funding gets us business at the end of the day, right? Selfishly, it's sales. But it feels really great to help these groups of people that have an amazing idea and huge passion get to the level where now they're building a team that's not just us. They're hiring, and I've interviewed people for my clients because they didn't know how to interview technical talent or operational talent. And growing in that space is what we believe turned us from an engineering service firm into a product company. So how far down that rabbit hole do you guys go? Because I actually don't know.
Well, I can tell you what I've been told of our history. Raman, you actually lived a lot of this, but I think early on, SEP stands for Software Engineering Professionals. We started as a software engineering firm, and over time, by delivering against fixed bid, scope of work, here are the requirements documents, go build X software that meets these requirements. I think those questions started to get asked over time, and as you think about product development life cycles, one of the last steps in the circle, I'm going to pretend to be Chris Schinkel here for a minute, our director of innovation, is delivering the software. Well, as you move backwards, you start to ask yourselves different questions and start to help customers craft Well, how would we know? What are the bets that we want to make in the market? Well, what are the things that our product could do that help meet our business objectives? And is the market? What do we need to sense here? So working our way backwards in that product life cycle is something I think that's happened over the last 36 years. And now we often find ourselves with some of our clients where, hey, we see an opportunity in the marketplace that technology could solve. We have an idea for where we want to go. Great. We can help you figure out what that looks like, and then maybe build it for you. And so folks like Chris Schinkel, Andy Chen, and others in the building are great at jumping into the super early stage of product development lifecycle and helping our customers work towards the why, the who, the what, and then if it makes sense, we'll build it for them.
Mm-hmm.
That evolution, as you alluded to, we're building very technical things, and often a subsystem in a giant system of things, and then steadily, as Zach said, we're moving earlier and earlier in the chain. We're also moving closer and closer to the consumer, and closer to it's the whole thing. Really, web applications, mobile applications. That was I think the first place it really took hold. And we initially called it discovery, which was everything you did before development.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard truth on discovery was we did discovery because if you do development on an idea that hasn't been vetted, if you're just misaimed a little bit, or maybe the team that sponsors you is misaligned, it doesn't matter if the end product meets all the requirements you were given. Everybody lost.
Yep. I'm only smiling over here because I feel like every item that you talk about or say is like stuff that we have found to be true as well. Yeah. But it's like not obvious when you start these things that's what you should be doing, right? Yeah. Again, in a way, it's like selfishly, it's like, man, we should have had this conversation 8 years ago because it would have saved a lot of time, money, and effort, right? But to a certain extent, that's part of the journey, right?
Yeah, and some things have to be experienced.
Yeah. I do think that there's a way of when you do look at like the life cycle of services consultancies, like they are kind of just born out of this, like you go through these phases as you come up through, just whether it's an individual or group of individuals that starts out, and I think it kind of has a similar hierarchy to what we talked today of you start out super technical and you get the fixed bid stuff and you set them up and knock them down. And over time, you definitely figure these things out, because that's verbatim exactly what we figured out was we don't like doing engineering and doing product development on stuff that isn't going to make it to market. So we figured out that, we actually have to care a whole lot more about whether or not whatever it is that our customers and clients are doing actually has a good product market fit, or is aligned with the people that are going to, make the decisions. If it's a larger corporation, like whatever, right? Like very much a mirror image of what you're just talking about there. Like that realization really set in after, doing 2 or 3 programs that died on the vine. And we look back and we went, well, what could we have done differently? Sure, there were like a few minor things where we were like, we could have maybe delivered a little better there, or faster or cheaper. But ultimately we came back to the conclusion, which I'm sure you guys did as well, was just like, it wouldn't have mattered if we'd have executed the plan perfectly, because we were pointed in the wrong direction.
Right. And let's be honest, none of us can predict success in the marketplace.
No.
Right.
I mean, this is the first rule of doing product development. There are no certainties.
Right.
Yeah, but it certainly helps to pay attention.
We're going to clip that one. There are no certainties. That is going in the YouTube clip for sure.
Well, and the thing I would say about that is, though, there are some things that I'm sure you guys at Glassboard and definitely us at SEP have learned over the years that might help you make better decisions.
Right.
That might help you take a better aim and take a shot that has better success.
De-risk things. Yes.
De-risk.
So here's and I don't know, maybe now I can shave some of those 8 years off. So just in the last year, we've even formalized this part. So we've named it and everything. I know it's like a professional services trope. You got to have a framework and name it and whatever.
I don't know if it counts unless you trademark it.
So for us, it's product strategy and innovation. And the current incarnation, actually, I'm going to tell this story. You might laugh because you may have heard something like this. So our very large customer hired a very large consultancy to do some strategy work for them. And predictably, at the end of it, they slid the PowerPoint deck across the table and said, here's your 5 pillars. Here's what you need to do. Good luck.
you got this.
Yes. And those pillars ended up, and that deck ended up in the hands of product leaders in that company who got that and were told, make it so. And they're looking at these things saying, this is not a plan. This is
ChatGPT that made a PowerPoint.
yeah, how am I supposed to close? And it's not that the material wasn't good, but it was no plan. It was way up here. And how am I supposed to, my job is execution. How am I supposed to go execute this thing that is
On a
not
feeling.
a plan? Yeah.
Right.
And so we were supporting those customers, and Mike Cronin and Shingle and Chen, they got together and said, like, how could we do this well? How do we bridge from high-level business strategy to product strategy to roadmap, which is really a prototype of your strategy, all the way into execution, and or pull the cord at any moment and say this was not the right way and stop, right?
And
all
go
that.
back to the beginning.
Commercial
if
over.
If they want to continue to do it, go back to the beginning and start at where you can rip Band-Aid off and do it again, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not always throw it away and be done. It's we've learned a ton. Go back to square one and know not to turn left at the third corner.
Yeah, but
right?
learn cheaply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Do
fail
you
fast.
guys use the phrase, so we do this sometimes, build to learn, build to earn. So there are tasks in the backlog. I didn't invent it, sadly. There are tasks in the backlog, though, that are build to earn. This is a feature. We know we want it, enhancement, whatever. Great. Yep, I understand. I should be able to think about an ROI. It's not always easy, but it should be clear. But there are also build to learn things. And don't apply the metrics of build to earn on build to learn.
Yeah.
That's great. No, I have such a hard time with some of our clients or partners convincing them that they don't know what's right or wrong yet. And we need to go real cheap, real fast, real hard to figure out which one of these 5 things is the right path. Because if you commit to one of them because your gut tells you right now, and we get to the end and it's not it, we don't have enough bandwidth to do it again. I know what their cash flow, their fundraiser look like. Like, we need to figure out real soft and fast what these things are and not waste time and money on it.
You and Ben came up with a name for it. I just saw
Genesis?
it come across. Yeah, that's
our
it.
Genesis
Yeah, that's
phase,
what they
which is
call it.
before discovery, which is this is the screw around and find out phase. Like, there is no hard deliverable. There is no this thing is going to go to market. It is entirely we build things in hardware. Right? So this is called 3D prints or renders or models, and in electrical
DBT,
engineering,
design, build, test, is quickly and as iteratively as makes sense, right? I mean, don't do dumb things, but literally, particularly like the one that you're talking about, it's a really tough problem. And honestly, we even said up front, like, we're actually not 100% certain that even we can come up with a solution to this problem. But the only way that we're going to get even a better sense for what the likelihood of that is to actually like try and truly see how hard this problem is to solve.
I say one of my favorite clients, Charlie. I can say this because he's been on the podcast and we've told the story. I told him in our second meeting, "You're going to pay me to tell you to stop doing what you're doing. I'll happily take your money for 2 months to make it enough data set to tell you that you should stop." And 2 months in, I was wrong in my assumption, and the data came out that this might actually work. And fast forward to now, and we've got 2 products basically hitting customers' hands this April, and he's racing around doing great stuff. And it's just amazing that your intuition, even those of us that are professionals at building products, right, can be wrong. And that's why design, build, test is so important, to get that data set, to go plan it out and figure it out fast.
What kind of maybe pushback or concern do you get from customers when you tell them, like, we have no idea how this is going to play out?
You're the experts. Why am I going to pay you this much money every month if you don't know the answer?
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that I've come back with, and I'd love to shave 8 more years off my learning career here, if you have any feedback here, is if you don't have enough capital to make a plan today, you definitely don't have enough time and capital to launch a hardware product. It's never going to happen. And that's the only bullet I have in the case to fight back that, well, you guys can't tell me right now in this meeting how long, how much, and why.
Yeah.
So how do you guys, when people come to you with, "I want this thing," and you say, when they say how much, how long, you guys, well, we gotta go figure it out. How do you guys respond to that?
I like to remind them, this is custom software development. You're building this thing probably because it does not exist in the world. If it exists in the world, you just go buy it.
Yep.
And we would tell you to go buy it. Please, please, please don't build it what you don't have to. But by definition, I don't know what is the thing at the end.
Right.
Because it doesn't exist in the world. The future is, in fact, not knowable. So what could we do instead? Trust me is not okay. No. I know you got to run your business. You got to do so. So we have a few techniques we do. So a lot of us in the discovery work. So what can we suss out about the world? How could we narrow that scope down to the tightest thing we can? Let's go real fast, as you would say. Let's de-risk, right? Like first rule of betting and investing is don't get wrecked. So how could we eliminate the biggest, scariest risk? Maybe we don't have to eliminate them all. How can we get rid of some? And then we use an estimation tool we learned from our friend Troy McGinnis. So the idea is an old idea. It's Monte Carlo forecasting.
I went to your guys' presentation and it was awesome.
Great workshop.
It was
You
super
guys are
good.
gonna have to do that one again. In the future for sure.
For sure. Yep, we will. And so the idea there is just, here's a set of assumptions about how the work is going to go. Some of the work is going to expand in ways we didn't expect. There's going to be bugs. We're going to work faster or slower than we expected, and so on. So let's build a simple mathematical model for how it's likely to go. Let's play out that model a bunch of different ways, roll the dice 1,000 times, and see what it says. It says you're going to be done at a certain, if we did 1,000 iterations, 800 times, you're done before this date. Okay, so look, this is probably the worst date you should plan for, right? And you do enough, and you start to get a range that is reasonable to operate your business from. Now, the magic, that part's easy-ish. The magic is to remember the assumptions you made in developing the model and to then start watching them. Okay, now we're actually doing, how's it working compared to what we thought? And now, 2 months into an 8-month gig, we can start to say, ooh, I don't like how that's going. What levers do we have to pull to change that aspect?
Can I return the hot take?
Yeah.
When I first heard about the Monte Carlo model, it was like, math person, this is super cool, whatever. I won't lie, and I still actually am a little bit skeptical about like the accuracy of using said tool, but I don't think that's the important thing about the tool actually, is whether or not it's a really good metric for estimating like project length and understanding probabilities. It's that you get your customer thinking in terms of probabilities and doing exactly what you just said, which is that like, we had to make a set of assumptions, and in this process, we wrote them down because that's what you need to build the model. And then you can basically point back to if and when things don't maybe pan out the way that you had hoped, you could point back to, well, it didn't wind up within the probabilities that this model projected because we changed the initial set of assumptions, right? And you could probably even argue that if you go back and tweak the model with the new set of assumptions and the corresponding levels of, risk and probabilities and stuff, that it would probably much more closely align to reality, right?
And that is in fact what we do.
And that's
we keep running the
Right.
model. But you raise a good point. It's kind of like almost like a quantum observation effect. The fact that we thought about it this way and we've set up the conversation this way. Customer and we're having a real conversation. I don't know how long it's going to take.
Right.
But we've started off with a totally different foundation than here's your set of requirements. And
Here's your quote.
Here's your quote. And now we're going to manage to that. No, I'm going to manage to like, you're trying to hit this date in this budget. There are 1,000 levers we can pull over the course of the project. A little less fidelity here, a little more fidelity here.
And
pull this out,
And which one's important? Good, fast, cheap.
Yep.
You can hyperfixate on one. If you have a deadline you can't miss, we can hit that. If you want an on time, on budget-ish, we can try and balance those. If these features can't ship without, it might cost more, it might take more time. And it's 3 knobs. They all affect each other. Pick the one that matters most or the 2 that you'd like to balance.
Yeah, we often like to talk about like the magic isn't necessarily in the report it produces. It's in the conversations that we have about it. Like that's where the magic really happens.
And the questions you have to ask to build the model. It's like a checklist. It forces you to ask the 10 things you should be asking in a way that doesn't feel dirty or confrontational, because it's just part of building this really cool model we have. And it kind of, makes it less serious. So they might give more honest answers than trying to get you guys to quote it cheaper or faster and stick you to it.
Well, customers want a hard timeline. And then when you don't do that and you give them ranges, they take that to mean that you
you're not an
don't
expert,
know or you're guessing, right? So I really do like this concept of, it's not guesswork. Again, it really is that like your project is going to have a window in which the timeline actually exists. And that window can be very narrow if we set up the problem correctly. And to your point, if we really do focus on the timeline and reducing the risks and doing some of that work up front, right, of de-risking the program to make that a tighter window. Or we can accept the fact that, you're really trying to push the envelope here. You're really trying to be innovative and you want to be that market leader. And therefore, the window is going to start to open up, right? Where it's a lot harder to come up with an accurate estimate of what, how much time, effort, and energy it's going to take to get to that outcome, right? So yeah, I think anytime you can get the customer thinking more in terms of probabilities or in terms of the fact that that end date is going to be flexible without them immediately going, oh, you're just guessing is like for the good, right? And it is difficult to have these conversations. So yeah, I think that's a really unique way to frame it or to get to the thing that you really should be talking about.
Yeah, whenever I'm asked to bend the laws of physics, I'm like, timeline has to be the flexible part here.
Yeah. Well, truth be told, you can't fix all three.
No,
right.
They're all connected.
I can remember a client a few years ago. Actually, Roman and I collaborated on this with, and we came up with: look, you have a finite amount of money in your budget. You have a date that is driven from that amount of budget, given the team composition that is needed to execute against what you're asking to build. We can't fix the scope; it's impossible. What we can do is we can confidently say, based on what we understand that you're wanting to do, and it was a 6-month time frame for the team. Mm-hmm. There's a 6-month version of this product that exists, and there's probably 10 features or things that they were looking to have built in that system. A couple of those features are going to be a paved road. Handful of those features are going to be a gravel road, and a couple are going to be a dirt road. And you have the levers, you have the control and the information, Mr. Customer, that we're going to help you give to make the decisions on which ones are going to be which version of the road.
I love that paved gravel dirt.
That was a Ramanism, another one. He needs to I get to steal it because I work for you.
You got a book deal yet?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
You got a book deal yet? You got to start disseminating these hits.
Yeah. Mostly I find out that some amazing epiphany I have about a technical thing or a process or product it already has a name. It's a sad repeating pattern in my life. Someone invented this.
Yeah. Like every time we come up with a new idea for a product and you get on Google and you're like, well, that exists. I would have never thought that existed, but it exists.
Yeah. Something that we were talking about a little bit ago that I'm curious about. We were talking about like the fact that SEPs are process nerds, and there's been this huge evolution over almost 36 years now about process in the building. I would describe us as we tend to bring like a playbook or a tool chest of things that you could do. And the magic is in the experience of the people on the team and understanding where the client is either in their maturity or what they're already doing today to try to find some amalgamation of these tools that works best for both parties. How do we match and mirror whilst bringing the expertise to bear versus bringing a prescription? This is the way that we do it. I'm not judging either approach. I'm just curious. How do you guys tend to approach that with your customers?
Oh, this is great. 'Cause this is the thing that keeps me up at night in my role as CEO of, I really wish it was, this is the playbook. Because then I could find people, give them the playbook and grow the team. Give me more money to go hire more people, we can grow the company. But in reality, doing hardware product or software or anything that's open-ended where the unknowns are fully unknown, you have to adapt and adjust. And we've got a set of chests, toolboxes and chests that we use for our startup clients. We have a set of toolbox and chests we use for our mid-market where we're running the product development almost always internally. But the client is a for-profit business that's usually like a 7-figure business, has employees, just no engineers. Or we have a set of playbooks where we're interfacing with the large corporate conglomerate that needs engineering services, or a Skunkworks, or Sunbeam Toasters wanted to make the IoT toaster. We'll run the IoT part inside their whatever their product process is. And we've had to be that, basically silly putty that will fill the cracks in on the other side and match perfectly what they have.
Have you heard, this is another one I didn't invent. Have you heard the concept of Catholic versus Buddhist approach to process? Have you heard this?
Can't wait.
It was in, I think the book is called Scaling Up Excellence, one of the Stanford D School deals. No, the idea is you have two approaches as an organization. You can go Catholic. These are the rules. This is how we do it. You show up. I'm not Catholic, so I don't want to get any words wrong.
Stand, kneel, stand, sit, kneel.
A few more times. Very, very prescriptive. This is the way. Follow the rules, and you will get
exactly that outcome.
you will get that outcome, right? And you can drive to that. And if you are McDonald's, right, in terms of how the food is prepared and delivered, like
Right.
you go to a McDonald's in the US and it's pretty much identical experience, right? That is a very Catholic approach, right? The Buddhist approach is, here are the principles that are important in an engagement with a customer. You should see that those principles are thought about and an appropriate approach selected. Go. Right.
Yep.
And now you have 1,000 flowers blooming, and sometimes they're weeds, and they weren't. Like a team over here, and this is a very SEP problem. A team over here is not using the best techniques that we know for that situation. And then we will, and so we'll look at that later and say, like, well, how did they not know to do this thing over here, right? And so we've wrestled with this so hard over the years. None of us want to be told what to do. We don't want to hand down a prescriptive answer because we're just like you described. It depends. There are so many scenarios. Also, no structure is not okay either. And so we actually have arrived at something. I'm not here to tell you it's going to win, but we're about a year in and it's feeling pretty good. Cleverly named SEP defaults. So the idea is a default. Here's a default way to handle some common aspect of your project, which might be scope or expectation management, or it could be anything. Here is a way. It's a good way. We know it mostly works. You should consider this way. You have the freedom, team leader, to vary from it for a reason. Experimentation, you don't think it's a fit, whatever. And then later, if it all goes to hell, we'll say like, hey, why didn't you do that? And what have you learned?
So Catholics on the weekdays, Buddhists on the weekends kind of thing. Like when, like you said, right? Like the default, default to the thing that we know that works, that's conservative. But if you want to be, strategic with the creativity, be strategic. But there's a difference between strategic creativity and just
no bounds,
having no process, right?
Right. And then the beauty of it, and again, like maybe it's our point in time. We think about training versus professional development. Professional development is go learn what you want to learn. Training is things I need you to know to do your job properly. How do you decide what to train people on? It seems like a simple question. It is not. And, in our business, time is literally money. So if we put people in training, they are not delivering for the customer.
Right.
So what do I train them on? Well, you know what? I need to train them on the defaults. We said this is a good way. All of a sudden, you have a pre-made training list.
Yeah.
And so my question is, have you guys gotten all the way to the end where you have default do this, if else, because you guys are software people, so you understand this, but like starting to highlight, here's default plan 1 that is used, let's say 70% of the time. Default plan 2 is for clients that do blank, 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 right? Oh, we have a regulated client. Here's default plan 2. If you get to plans 3 and on, you're on your own. Like this is real creativity. The client's got a special need. But here, maybe the top 3 are, here's 3 different forms of Christianity, right? Going down the list. And then here's the Wild West Buddhism that the client's a special flower, right?
We would argue we're still pretty early.
Yeah.
And so we're covering the most common cases. And then we have a sort of a team of internal consultants who can sit with teams and say like, in your case, I would approach this, or here's how I might modify that. And also to then learn like, hey, how'd it go?
Yeah.
You tried this new default. We rewrote down. How'd it go?
I set you up. Did I set you up for failure or success? Which one was it?
When you get big enough, you get to have the consultants get to actually have their own consultants. That's pretty cool.
Oh, what a day that would be.
It's different hats for different people.
Yeah. No,
I like that.
That's awesome. And I think the one thing we're learning right now is our different strategies really are client and product dependent and way less team dependent. We thought originally when you and I started growing the team that different ones of our employees had different management strategies. Either they like to execute or be executed on them, like being told how or what to do the program when you're managing a team. And we thought it was personality based. And as we've grown and I get more personalities in the building and more different clients, I find that to be untrue. It's entirely the project based, that certain programs are really hard to manage path A, and they're much easier, even as the people working on it, to have them managed this way, not just that the outcomes are better. It's more enjoyable. Like our regulated products, we have a much more Catholic form of project management that has lots of things of how this has to happen in these orders and how you change it, the allocation, trade hours back and forth and do stuff. Whereas our clients that are on more of either a startup path or on a technology exploration path, it is almost Wild West. Like every 2 weeks you sit down and be like, this is what we learned. This is what we're trying to do next week. Client, does that make you happy? Is this the thing that meets your needs? And invariably they show up with option 3, none of the things we thought about. And that's what we do for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks guys for coming on the show today. I mean, I think we covered a lot of really cool topics. These things meander like they do, but yeah, I think it was just neat to learn just overall from just hiring practices and just, I learned a lot today about, things that, again, we can definitely continue to focus on, but it's just neat to see some of the parallels, some of the differences between, doing things, I guess, at sort of, bits versus atoms, as you guys like to always put it. But definitely appreciate you both coming on and talking to us today. We'll catch everybody in the next one.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun.
Take care.